Hey everyone, it is your host Damien here from Hybrid Heroes, and this is the HYROX Heroes podcast, where we talk everything that you need to know when it comes to getting ready for your next HYROX race. Excited to have you here, and let's get into the episode. Now, today we're going to be talking about beginner gains. Like, what are beginner gains? I'm going to explain that. But if you are a beginner, if you're just about to start your HYROX training, or if you're someone who's sort of midway, you might be experiencing some of the problems we're going to talk about today. But even if you're an advanced athlete, you would have well and truly have gone through this phase, the beginner gain phase, where, every week just seems to be a new PR. You're making huge progress. But as we're about to talk about today, it eventually runs out, okay? But this is a great sign. So this is going to be an awesome episode. If you're a beginner starting your journey, I'm going to pre-frame, what's to come. But this is good. So you don't start to feel disheartened, or you don't start to feel like something is wrong and then start to make the mistakes that we see. If you are someone, again, you're already, you're starting to become a little bit more intermediate, a little bit more advanced, and you're on that journey, and your results have already started to slow down. Like, you're still making progress, but the speed of it is already slowing down, right? You got to listen to today, because this is going to help shine a light on the process, right? And again, we're going to talk about how you can keep, making progress, and what that then needs to look like, because we need to create really a new expectation around it, because things don't get easier, as we're about to find out. So let's dive into the episode. This is going to be huge for your training, for your HYROX preparation, and to take you to the next level. So let's get into it. All right. So what we're going to talk about is let's talk what is beginner gains. Okay. So it's accelerated improvements in your training. Now, when we see, somebody brand new to anything, right? It's like when you're starting at zero, right? To even get like 1% better, it's 100% increase, right? But when, so those beginner gains, what we refer to, and we see it all the time. When you start your training, like, you're just learning the technique, you're learning the skills. Maybe you can't even run, more than 400 meters. So, any kind of, improvement is quite a substantial improvement in this initial phase. Now, beginner gains, they can last for, 6 months. They can last for 12 months. Depends where you start. Often when I look at clients, one, metric that I look at is what we call like training age, because I can have someone who's 30 years old, but if they've never been to the gym, never ran, never played sports, right? They have a really young training age, and we're going to make a lot of progress really quickly. Why? Because we're just going to get them, doing the basics. We're going to get them doing some, body weight exercises. Then that's going to progress into weighted exercises. We're going to get them doing some basic conditioning. So they're going to go through like, a huge growth spurt. Like, think of a baby, brand new baby, like how much growing happens, right? And then, as we become an adult, it doesn't really feel like we grow. It's like we've been the same person for the last 10 years, it can feel like, right? So these are the beginner gains. Now, what we do find, and why I'm even talking about it on today's episode, is because I've coached so many people through this period. I've been through it myself, where, we get used to that speed of progress, and we start to think it's normal. We start to go from, adding, it's like we're adding 2.5 to 5 kilos, even 10 kilos, it can feel like, every single week to our squats. Our speed on the run, we're making 10 seconds advancements, 20 seconds advancements. It can feel like over a couple weeks, right? And we just keep making that. And, we just start to think like, okay, like, this is now progress. And then we start to feel better. Obviously, we go from feeling quite inadequate, then we start to feel more confident, then we feel really, proficient at all the movements. So even our feeling is constantly progressing. So what can happen then is, then as we start to, get fitter, right, then things actually start to get a little bit harder, because now to go that extra mile, to get that adaptation, or to keep pushing and to keep getting progress, right, you got to run even faster. You got to lift even heavier, right? And it doesn't even return the same result. It feels like then we're doing more effort, we're running faster, right? But we're getting less of a result. Another example of this is like when people, like with nutrition, right? Nutrition, if someone, has a fair bit of weight to lose, right? Just by getting them to cut out some processed food, drink some more water, like that alone can see a decrease in body fat. They can be losing a kilo a week. In some people, over a course of a month, they can drop 5 kilos. But as they start to get leaner and leaner and leaner, right, that approach doesn't even make them lose any weight, right? And then it's like, wait a minute, how did I lose so much weight doing just those two things? But now, like, I'm even better when I'm eating healthier, but now I'm not losing weight like I used to. It's the science of diminishing return, right? So when it comes to training, it's the exact same. We're going to be putting in more effort, but the return, right, is going to seem like less, right? Now, this is the thing. It's not so doom and gloom. It's just the reality, and it's the way it works. It's the science. It's not that the return is diminishing. It's just as we start to reach our full potential, as we start to maximize our potential of what we're capable of, to then get that little bit of improvement, that 1% improvement, right, does take more effort. But again, that's what separates everyone. And, as we know, the people at the top of the field, like it's only a few percent that really separate them. But to go that extra mile, takes a huge, huge result. So the return is still there, right? But we're going to go through that, at some point of your life. So what are factors? Like why do we go through this beginner gain phase? Like what is going on in this phase? I'm going to talk about it. So again, when we're in beginner gain phase, right, is we're going into, what we call like neuromuscular adaptations, mechanical adaptations. So the nervous system is getting stronger because it's not just muscles getting stronger, right? The nervous system is learning how to use those muscles. So this is one thing that's very untapped with a lot of people. Why warm-ups are so important, is because we get more stimulus or stimulated via the nervous system, which then can create more performance. So the more we start to train, the more we get muscle memory, the more that nervous system knows how to perform actions and tasks, which is going to equal performance. So early on, we're developing a lot of those like neural pathways, right? Skill acquisition. So we're actually learning. If you think about the first time you ever did a wall ball, right? And now think about where you're at now. Whether, you've just done the wall balls for a month, I'm sure there's still a huge improvement. And whether you've been doing it for like last 5 years, if you go to where you started and where you are now, right, your ability, your skill acquisition, the way that you can perform that movement is totally different, right? So the more efficient we get at something, the more skill we get around a movement, right? We're going to then be able to produce more power, more efficiency. So again, we're learning this in the initial phase. And again, initial phase you can't say you've learned something in 1 month. It takes years to master something. So again, if you're in this beginner phase, you're going to be making huge improvements over the next year. It's going to be very clear to see. Right, baseline improvement. Again, like we sort of spoke about when we look at training age, right? It's like if you have a really low baseline, right? Again, you're very new to it. Well, when you start low, then you've got just so much room to move into, right? Versus someone who's like, yep, I've been training hard for 10 years. I'm already really at the top of my game. Cool. Well, to make that little marginal difference, right? Again, we're starting at different baselines, right? Motivation and consistency as well, right? If you think about it, when you start something new, like if you've just signed up for HYROX and this is kind of like a new challenge and a new event structure for you, like this you can have a lot of motivation. You'll be watching HYROX videos, you're listening to HYROX podcasts, you're in this constant learning phase and absorbing all this energy and motivation from everything that you're consuming. And this is then going to go into your training, right? You can only watch so much YouTube videos on HYROX, right? And listen to so many podcasts before you then start to go, okay, this isn't stimulating me like it used to anymore. I remember when I first got into CrossFit many years ago, all the OG CrossFit documentaries used to get you so excited. And then, I just couldn't wait to get to the gym. But then after, 3 years of watching that nonstop, you start to go, okay, I've seen it all a bit now. But now nothing's new anymore. Now you're in the processes of doing it. And that ultimately, what we're going to talk about at the end is how we structure our thinking around that. Now we've got to go into long-term sort of thinking. Okay. So if you're in this beginner gain phase, right, it will eventually end. But like I mentioned, this is a really good sign. Now, this is the biggest point that I really want to highlight in this whole podcast, right, is because I see so many clients, so many people I work with, is they get disheartened, right? They get disheartened when they're like, I'm putting in more energy, I'm training really hard, I'm eating better, I'm pushing, but I just don't feel like I'm making progress anymore. Now, the one thing that I always say, it's like, well, and this is why we track data and we record all our results, through our apps and all the rest of it, is because sometimes it can feel like you're not making progress. Sometimes it can feel like, you're just doing the same thing over and over and you're putting in all this extra energy, not really going anywhere. But when we look at data, right, when we look at your run speed, or we look at your strength, or we look at how fast you did a workout, there is always still going to be signs that you're making progress, right? And eventually you just take one step in front of the other, you're going to be going somewhere. But it just doesn't feel like we're making progress anymore because, like I mentioned, because of all these beginner gains, this expectation now that you think you're just going to keep making huge chunks of progress at a time, it will slow down. But, this is your new normal. This is the new normal that eventually you got to get to. If you think of like Usain Bolt, right? World's fastest sprinter. If you think about him, if he made 0.1 of a second, quicker improvement, that is massive. That is huge, right? Now imagine how hard he's got to train, right, over years to make that 0.1 of a second, improvement. So you can sort of see, but he's the world's best. He's a sprinter. Yeah. So theoretically, being the world's best and most proficient, why can't he just keep making huge improvements? Because again, as you get closer to the top of your potential, right, things slow down. So if things are slowing down for you, it's going to be a sign that you're actually made a lot of that progress. You are now sort of coming out of the beginner phase. You are now an intermediate. You are now starting to work towards the advanced side of things, which now means that how we continue to make progress needs to be very different, right? Now it can't be a bit of guessing. So again, when we're in this beginner phase, right, like I mentioned with the person trying to lose weight, cut out some processed food, drink more water, you're going to lose more weight. So in a beginner phase, if you do some running, right, and if you lift some weights, you're going to get better at HYROX. It's that simple. Like you literally do not need to overcomplicate it any more than that. Do some running, lift some weights, you're going to get better at HYROX. But eventually, that strategy, right, that simple, basic strategy will stop to deliver you the results to keep progressing, right? Because it's a very basic, it's a very beginner strategy. Let's just throw something in this direction and eventually we'll make some results. As you start to then, become, better and your fitness starts to improve, now we have to start to actually be a little bit more structured now, because we need to be measurable. This is a principle. If we don't measure something, right, or if we don't manage something, then we don't know what we're doing that is making the progress, right? So again, that's why, we're really big on, and we provide programs because we provide structure. So if you follow that structure, now you have a plan that you can measure, and you can then, very accurately say, it was these action steps or these workouts that I did that then produced the result. So if it's the result you want, you keep following it. If something's not working, then you can go, okay, well, this is what I did. Now, how do I change it? See how we can now be very accurate in identifying what's working or what's not, and then how to make the best change. This is part, right, of making progress. Because there's a saying, right, if you just keep doing the same thing over and over and expecting a different result, well, this is the definition of insanity, and you will go insane, right? And you will then just want to quit, right? And this is the big reason why a lot of people quit, is because, again, they're using the strategy that they used at the start, but continuing to use it to try get now more advanced results. It's not going to work. There's a big saying that I have as well. I've got lots of sayings, by the way, but what gets you here doesn't get you there, right? So, and that's what I say. And I talk to a lot of you guys about your progress, about your training, and I'm always checking in because I'm curious and I really want to help and support people. But, I can't, tell people what to do, or I can't say you need to do this. All I can do is talk to them, understand where they're at, and try to provide support. But there are a lot of people that I do come across and they're just like, yep, I'm doing this thing, right? And I'm like, awesome, great. And then when I check in with them, they're still doing the same thing. And then sometimes, they've done a HYROX, and then I'm like, and they're like, yeah, I just got to do more of that thing. It's like, it doesn't work that way. You can't just do more of it, right? It's like if you're baking a cake and you use certain ingredients and it tastes terrible, you don't just go, I'm just going to add more of the ingredients. It's like sometimes you have to add new things or do it in a different way. It's a different recipe will get you a different result. So again, I hope this helps you understand, because if you are that person, if you are a little bit stuck, if you've gone, you know what, this strategy used to work great for me, I don't know why it's working. Must be my sleep, or it must be this food that I'm eating, or it must be this, or if only I had a little bit more time, or work's been a little bit stressful. It's like, yes, they are things that can make a difference, right? But fundamentally, from a principle point of view, they're not really the things slowing you down, right? What's slowing you down is you're continuing to do the same shit over and over, right? The same beginner shit, right? Expecting as well huge results. It's not going to happen, right? So we got to then start to understand that it's like, hey, this thing is still giving me a result, right? But I want faster results. Well, sometimes it's like, well, if it's still producing you a positive result, right, then it's like continue, because then that is, you're making progress. There's probably the system probably work. Maybe it's just your expectation around the speed of progress, right? And then if you're wanting more progress, well, then it's like, okay, if I'm wanting more progress, if I'm wanting to continue, well then, all right, now we've got to start to go to more advanced structures, right? We've got to start looking at recovery. We've got to dial in nutrition. We've got to be training more. We've got to change our structure. We've got to now go from, 4 days a week to 5 days a week. It's this saying, right? There is another saying. This isn't mine. This is from Jim Rohn. It's things don't get easier. You just get better, right? So the process of making progress in everything, but especially HYROX, is the process does not get easier. The training does not get easier. The event does not get easier. Your competition does not get easier. Everything gets harder. And so it should, right? Everything in life. This is a principle of life, right? And if you can't believe that, and if you try to resist that the fact that the better I get, right, it gets harder. If you want it to be the other way around, that as I get better, things should just get easier, right? If that's what you want to believe, unfortunately, it's just not the way reality works, right? The way it works is that things get harder. You get better. We got to make you faster. We got to make you stronger. We got to make you more disciplined. We got to make your nutrition better. And if you do all this, you will then be able to do harder things, right? This is so important. This is so important to get, all right? Because, huge point. So this inevitable plateau, it is coming for you beginners. It is coming, but it's such a great time. Again, that's the time where you should be like, awesome, I am now sort of no longer a beginner, right? And this should inspire you and motivate you now to go, okay, how do I now keep making progress? How does my training now change? How do I evolve as a person, right? And how do I continue to make progress towards my goals, right? Which is really huge. So we're going to talk about some strategies, right? So how do we overcome it? Damien, you've just done a great job of highlighting that eventually the end will come of these beginner gains, right? And yes, it's a great sign. I'm going to be, now advancing. So what does this actually mean? Again, same deal. It's like we've spoken about the plan that got me here isn't going to get me there. So what does it there need to now look like? All right. So strategies that we need to look at. All right. These are basic fundamentals, because simple works, right? This is like one thing I'm identifying massively in this space of HYROX. It's so easy to overcomplicate, because there's so many things we got to do. We got to run. We got to be strong. We got to have endurance. We got to be fast. We got to be functional. We got to be all these things, right? But if we just look at it, if we zoom out and just go from a very simple and basic point of view, like we've got to have aerobic capacity, we've got to have strength, we have to have an ability for them to come together and produce, maximal output, right? So we just got to look at very simple. So simple strategies work, right? So progressive overload, right? So again, when we're looking at training plans, right, and you're looking at structuring, you have to have progressive overload. So what does that mean? It means that every week we need to just slightly, put more stress or more load onto the body than it did the week before, right? So if we're thinking of back squats, right, let's say week 1 we're at 100, week 2, right, might only need to be 102.5, right? Typically a 5% increase is going to be huge. So that's even, that's 5, that's 2.5, 2.5 to 5% is going to be huge. So if you go to 102.5, let's just say we're doing 10 reps, that's week 2. Now, if we can make that small adjustment again, week 3, now we're at 105, week 4, we're 107, week 5, we're at 110. That's a 10 kilo increase, right? And that is on a fairly, good weight. What a beginner might look like is they'll go from 30 kilos to 40 kilos, 50 kilos, 60 kilos. Again, see how different it is. When we start to get to stronger weights, those jumps become less. 5 weeks goes real quick. If you made 10 kilo improvement in your back squat in a very solid way, like you did all your working sets at that weight, you're going to be making great adaptations. Those adaptations are going to be very strong. Like they're not just going to be, because you took a whole bunch of caffeine and you made it. So it's going to be very true results, right? So you got to be looking at progressive overload, right? You do this in your running, you do it in your strength. It applies to everything. There is no secret here. Even HYROX workouts. HYROX workouts are not just a whole bunch of movements together. They should be structured like, time domains. And, you should even be looking at rounds as like sets and trying to repeat rounds and repeat sets so we can still apply this principle. Periodization, right? So looking at the program as a whole. So, your journey, if you have HYROX in, 6 months time, right, you got to periodize the time frame. What does the first block need to look like? What does the middle look like? And what does, the end look like? And making sure those time frames are all right, because you can't just be like, I got 6 months to HYROX and I'm just going to train one way hard all the way through, right? Because it's not sustainable and it's not the best way to build towards a peak performance. So if you're 6 months out, maybe I got to work on building up my aerobic capacity. So my zone 2 runs or my long runs, right? I'm struggling to run for 60 minutes. I got to work my way up to 90 minutes of running. So just slow running, aerobic capacity. And I feel like I need to get stronger, do strength training. I might have to sit in this for the next sort of like 6 to 8 weeks. That's, block 1. Then the next block is now I'm going to shorten those runs, but we're going to make them faster. I want to build more speed, more pace, right? And now the strength training, I want to do some functional high intensity training with that as well, because I want to apply in dynamic ranges. And then the last block, the last maybe 6 to 8 weeks before HYROX, now I'm going to be very specific with my HYROX programming. I've got to start to replicate the race, the intensities, right? Even the running distance, the compromise runs, all these things, that's in that block. See, you got to periodize your timeline and your training program, right? Hopefully this makes sense to you. And if it doesn't, like, number 1, reach out, comment, and I can definitely help you with this. Other things that we then look at recovery as you start to get close to the event, prioritizing more rest, getting sleep, nutrition, supplements that help your body recover as well. These are all the things that we want to optimize because, again, when you start and you're a beginner, maybe you're not even worried about your nutrition, and you don't need to be too crazy focused in everything right away. Again, just making improvements in your training will see huge improvements. But then, like even for myself now, we're trying to just get any kind of percentage of improvement we can make anywhere. So, we're measuring out food, we're measuring out quantities of supplements. We're taking more, supplements, taking our creatines, taking our fish oils, taking our pre-workouts, our nitric oxide boosters, all these things, right, that we need to take. Magnesium before bed. I've just learned there's like 4 different magnesiums that have 4 different functions. Like, you got to then get the right one. Like, it's that attention to detail. That's just from a recovery point of view. and then, training and protocols and all the rest of it. So again, these are strategies that become important more later on. So if you're starting to plateau a little bit, right? Maybe now it's like, okay, well, the training doesn't need a huge revamp right away, right? Maybe now as I identify, it's like, yeah, you know what? I got to focus on nutrition, right? Because ultimately, if you even perfectly, okay, Damien, I've changed my training. I've now periodized and I've got this new training structure and I've got everything, but I just still have not even touched or focused on nutrition. I'm still eating Maccas every day. I'm still, not counting my calories. I'm not eating enough food, right? Like this is the thing that's just going to hold you down, right? So what you want to do is, as you make great improvements in an area, then you want to then focus on those weaker areas until all areas. So, really it's like training, nutrition, recovery, right? If you get those three things as your focus points and you work on them all the time, not all at once, right? Perfectly over time, you'll start to create all those habits, but they're the things that we got to look at. All right, guys, we're getting close to the end of this podcast. So this is the, I don't want to say biggest because I've already said this is the biggest thing, but this is a very important thing. When you get to this point, we're coming out of the beginner phase and you have your moment. You're going to have a moment, right? You're going to be like, this is shit. I'm not progressing. Like, I'm not even losing weight. Like, things getting better to me. You're going to compare. You're going to just have a moment, all right? Have your moment. But then come back to it for me. Come back and go, you know what? I'm actually making huge progress. Look at where I was. Look where I am today. Shit, actually, I'm doing good. But now this is where it's really challenging. Why do I want to do this? What's my why? Why am I training for HYROX? Is this something that's actually important to me? You got to reset your goals, because sometimes, we love going into a new gym, new space, and everyone's like, oh my God, you're amazing and you're running really fast and you're good and you should do HYROX. And then you start doing it and you're starting to get all of that, significance. You're starting to get all of that, attention, right? And then it just becomes an expectation. Then people aren't patting you on the back anymore because they just know you're that fit person. So this is where now our thinking and our mindset needs to change. We need to go, you know what? Like, do I believe I'm that person? Do I believe that, now I'm fit and I'm good enough and I don't need the significance. I don't need the attention from others to tell me how good I am. Now I need to be intrinsically motivated towards the things that I want, right? Why do I want those things? And now I need to be driven to really keep pursuing my goals. Now my goals, might be the HYROX coming up in 3 months, but, is that going to be your only HYROX? Does progress stop there? Is that the end of the line? And it shouldn't be, right? I believe HYROX to be a really good HYROX athlete. Okay, so if you are taking HYROX on for the first time, I believe to become a really good HYROX athlete, it's going to take you a couple years, right? It's going to take you many years, because you're only going to get faster, you're only going to get fitter, you're only going to get more experience, you're only going to get stronger, right? You're only going to become more developed in this space. And as a lot of us are learning, if you look at any typical HYROXer, right, the progress that just as a collective, the speed, like look at the records being broken, look at the times from the athletes, like, our mixed doubles time wasn't enough to podium, but, 12 months ago, it would have, 2 years ago, we would have been going to world championships on our time. So everyone's getting fitter, right? So now you need to start to become, this is what I call it, you need to become a long-term thinker, right? You can't be short-term. Short-term is just thinking about the next HYROX and thinking that I need to achieve everything in that HYROX. That, I need to set my PB, I need to show everyone that I'm good. And if I don't hit that, I'm a failure and I suck. Absolutely not. You're there to do your best, right? And we see it because in Australia here as well, like all around the world, but especially Australia, we have multiple events really close to each other. So, people go to Melbourne, go to Sydney, go to Brisbane. Sometimes those events are only 4 weeks apart, 3 weeks apart, right? Even 8 weeks apart, which is fairly close. And I've seen people and I've spoken to these people who did one event and were like, okay, I was unhappy with my time, but I've signed up for the next one 4 weeks down the track. And now, their time was like an hour 30. And they've gone, next one, I want it to be under an hour 20. And it's like, okay, so you're talking in the next 4 weeks, you want to make a 10-minute improvement, right? So this to me, again, it's very short-term thinking, short-term, because it's like, this is what I wanted and I want to get that there. It's like, I need that dopamine. I need that satisfaction. I need that achievement right now. Where the reality is, you've got to be thinking long-term. You got to go, you know what? This is my goal. Look, I'm going to aim for 10 minutes quicker on the next one. But the main goal is like, I want to make progress, because then the next one and the next one, it's only inevitable that I will reach my goals if this is something that is important to me, right? And then the reality is, sometimes people have these expectations, right? Because when you're short-term thinking, sometimes you're emotional, right? You're very emotional in this state. There's nothing wrong with emotion, but if we are making very emotional decisions, right? I want this, I want that. Again, emotional expectations. The logic behind it sometimes doesn't work, right? Yes, I know, male brain, male thinker. Sorry, girls out there, I'm being logical right now. But it's like, your emotion wants to go 10 minutes quicker. You feel like you can go 10 minutes quicker, but the logic and the science behind it is you're just not going to achieve it. So you have to be able to think longer. You have to go, either I have to do a HYROX later, or I'm going to do this one, but it's going to be an experience. I'm going to learn. I'm going to grow along the way. I believe if you can become a long-term thinker when it comes to goal setting, towards HYROX, towards your training, right? Then inevitably you will reach all of your goals, because now you're possessing the mindset of, you then have to be more disciplined because you have to do things for a longer period of time. You eventually have to create structure, because you can't just be random over 12 months. Well, you can, but it's just not going to deliver your results. So, then you're going to look to going, okay, well, what do I need to do in these next 3 months, these next 3 months, these next 3 months? You have to be consistent, right? To be a long-term thinker, you have to go, you know what? I can't train 7 days a week right now because I want to do this for 12 months. So I have to do this in more sustainable ways. And then also being this long-term thinker allows you then to stop focusing on just one area so intensely. Like, I just got to run more. I just got to run, and go, okay, I need to work on running. I need to work on strength, but I need to work on nutrition. I need to work on my mental health. I need to work on recovery. I need to work on all these things. And this balance will allow me then to, go on and achieve long-term. That's what we want to do. HYROX and this hybrid space, I love so much, because I believe it's a very sustainable, way to train for health, for lifestyle. It's running, it's getting out with your friends, it's doing functional exercises. Everyone can do it. It's very inclusive, a lot of people. And I know personally myself, like, my body feels amazing for doing it. Some other types of functional training, can be a little bit too much, a little bit too taxing. So everything's like good, but it's like, again, if HYROX is a goal for now, great. If it's a long-term goal, great. But if being in the best shape of your life for the rest of your life is an important goal, yes, HYROX can be part of that, and training and competing can be part of that. But again, think bigger for me, and just think that, okay, I want to enjoy the process, right? The process of this whole HYROX journey, of this whole hybrid journey, should be an enjoyable one. Because if we don't enjoy the process, right, we're not going to enjoy the result, right? And I know many people as well that, they sign up to a HYROX, they get ultra motivated, they then train in a way that is like really intense, right? And they don't like it. They go, like, they would rather not. But there's someone that loves a challenge, and they're very motivated, and they just push themselves. They push. They get to HYROX and they smash themselves at HYROX, right? They can get a good result, but it's hard. And that person typically goes, I've done it, and they never look at it again, right? Or they won't look at it for another 12 months until they get a bit of FOMO, because they've seen their friends who now are long-term thinkers and have done it in more sustainable ways continue to make progress, and they're like, hey, how that could have been me, and they get motivated to do it again, right? Hopefully this makes sense. There's a lot of real talk going on here. All right, Chris, so let's wrap that up, all right? So long-term thinkers, all right. Now, if you're really struggling with this, if all this sounds great, but okay, I don't even know where to start now. Like, that's why Hybrid Heroes, that's why people like myself, that's why we have started this company, right, is to help people just get that structure, to get the know-how, to get the support, to get the guidance, right, to put in the right plan, right, and then to have someone that can help you and guide you along the way. So if that is, if that sounds amazing. That's why, so we got our Hybrid Heroes app where we have HYROX programs, and a huge feature of our programs that we have as well is we don't just have like a 12-week program where it's just, again, we're going to smash it for 12 weeks. Absolutely not. We have programs from 12 months out, right, all the way to 4 weeks out of your event. Different programs need, and again, what gets you here doesn't get you there. So our 12-month out program is designed for people who are 12 months out, where you're building that endurance, you're building that strength, right? And training is less intense, very sustainable. And as we get closer to your race, so that the program picks up the intensity and all the demands that you need to, everything is very thought out for those reasons. So sometimes it's as simple as just plug into our system. Just come into our system, start wherever you are on your timeline, and you have that structure to follow. And you get myself in there as well to coach you and guide you, as well as an amazing community to work with. So if that sounds like something you're interested in, this is not me just trying to sell something hard to you. This is me just trying to say, this is why we have this solution, because everything we spoke about today is very real. So if this it sounds like a great solution for you, I have the link below. You get a 7-day free trial. You get in there, do your welcome form. I say hi to you, and we get you started. It's that simple. And then now it's up to you to work towards your goals, be that long-term thinker, right? And just literally one workout at a time, one foot in front of the other. We're going to get you there. We're going to get you there. Why? Because we've done it ourselves. We've done it for hundreds of people, and we can do it for you too. Now, if the program is something that's like, you know what, Damien, I've actually got a good program. I've got a really great coach, because this is the thing. There's so many great coaches and communities out there. Then I also invite you to join our free community. We have a free Hybrid Heroes community where we put content, we put all these kind of videos in there in regards to HYROX. So just doing that for free, and we can inspire each other, and you can engage in it, and we can learn from you as well. So how cool is that? Link is also down below in the description. Other than that, guys, keep training hard. Thank you for tuning into the podcast. If you're listening to this on audio, in your car, wherever you are, maybe you're training, or if you're watching the video, great job watching this all the way to the end. And I'll see everyone on the next episode. Keep training hard, and hopefully I see you at HYROX very soon.